Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the switch statement. So this switch statement is going to be another way that we can go about writing some conditional code. Essentially, this is going to take the place of our if, else if, and else statements by trying to write this in a more concise manner. So there's going to be three major components that we have to consider with our switch statement. We're going to have a test expression and some case values that we use to determine which set of statements to execute. So the test expression is essentially like our initial Boolean expression. This is going to take a variable or value, and then each of the case values, these are going to be the things we're checking that test expression against. And these case values are going to take either a constant or some kind of value. So the break statements are used to terminate a section of statements for a particular case. We're going to see in a moment we use this break keyword to state in our code when we should stop executing a particular case within our switch. If we don't include these break statements, then control of the code is just going to fall through to the next case. Essentially what that means is that if we exclude or omit that break statement, we are potentially going to execute multiple cases anytime a particular condition is true. And then finally we're going to have the default section. That's going to be at the very end of our switch, and that's going to be equivalent to the else block. This is what we'll execute if all of the other cases are false. So the code that I'm going to be using as an example, we're going to be using this set of if, else if, and else statements for checking different ranges for a grade based on a character that the user inputs. So we're going to go ahead and put this together. We're going to create this version of it, and then we'll also talk a little bit about how to convert this to a switch statement. So go ahead and minimize this. I'm going to come over to NetBeans, and we're going to go ahead and create a new Java application. And for this one, we're going to go ahead and make this the grade checker. Finish that up. And for this grade checker, since I'm going to be dealing with user input, in addition to removing these extra comments, right here below my package statement, I'm going to put in an import from the Java library, get that util package, and we'll go get the scanner class. So I'm just going to use the scanner class to allow the user to input a character of some kind, and then we'll go ahead and check that character to determine which of the print statements we want to execute. Go ahead and continue to clean up the style, remove these extra comments that we don't need. And then right here, we'll go ahead and put in our scanner. So I'm going to go ahead and call this keyboard. Just use that same convention that we've seen before with creating a scanner object. So it'll be equal to a new scanner that is reading from the keyboard input. So it's going to be from system.in. We also are going to need a char variable to hold the user's input. So I'm going to have a char. I'm going to call this letter grade. And this will initially be equal to, let's just use some kind of dummy value for this and say maybe it's equal to the character for 0. The next thing I'm going to need is to include my first print statement to indicate a request to the user for some input. So we'll go ahead and put that right here. So we'll do system.out.print, and we'll say, please enter your letter grade right there. And then right here, we're going to go ahead and get the character that the user inputs. So we use our letter grade. This is going to be equal to, and keep in mind that in order to get a single char, we've seen this before, we're going to be using the next line method to essentially get the string that the user gives us. And then we want to make sure that we're using the char at method to go ahead and just get that 0th character, so the very first character within that string from our perspective, the 0th character from the computer's perspective. So we can go ahead and just take that character and store that into our letter grade variable. And then right here, we'll go ahead and start putting together these different statements. So the first one we'll say is if this letter grade is equal to A, then we're going to go ahead and just do the first print statement. So we'll say system.out.println and say your grade is in the range of 90 to 100. For the next one, we're going to go ahead and do an else if. So if this is not true, we're going to go to the next one. We'll check that. We'll say else if our letter grade is equal to B. Then we'll go ahead and just print out that it's in the range of 80 to 89. So our system.out.println, and then say your grade is in the range of 80 to 89. For the next couple of these, it's going to be pretty much the same structure. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this else if. Go ahead and copy that. So we're going to need this again for C, D, and F. So I need this 3 more times. So go ahead and put in each one of those, and then we'll go ahead and modify these characters and these ranges. So this next one's going to be for C, and this is going to be for 70 to 79. This one's going to be for D, which is going to be for 60 to 69. And then finally we're going to have F, and this one's going to be your grade is less than 60. And then the other thing that I want to go ahead and include, because we're getting this from the user's input, we want to account for the possibility that the user accidentally types in something other than what we were expecting. So maybe they give us something other than an A, B, C, D, or F. So for that case, we're going to say else system.out.println, and we'll just give them a little kind of tip about what we're expecting. We'll say please enter either A, B, C, D, or F. Go ahead and save that. And so if we go ahead and test this out, we'll go ahead and run this. So we can now say, please enter your letter grade. So we'll go ahead and put that in right here. So we'll just go ahead and test out each one of these cases from top to bottom. So for the first one, we type in A. We see we get the range of 90 to 100. Run this again. We'll do B. It gives us the range of 80 to 89. Again, with C, say your grade is in the range of 70 to 79. We'll do D. Your grade is in the range of 60 to 69. And then if we do F, your grade is less than 60. And finally, if we type in pretty much anything other than what it was expecting, so that could include any other character besides A, B, C, D, or F. It could also include a lowercase a, b, c, d, or f, since we don't account for that case. So we could do something like a lowercase a, and it will give us that warning, please enter either A, B, C, D, or F, and it's expecting them to be capitalized. So now that we have this code, this if, else construction for checking our different letter grades, what I want to go ahead and do now is convert this into a switch. So take a look at the code right here. So this is going to be the equivalent of that as a switch, where now we're going to use the letter grade in our test expression, which we can see at the very top of this code. So we're going to do switch, and we have a pair of parentheses, and we put our letter grade into that. And so the way that this is going to work, the way that it does the comparisons, is it's going to take whatever we put into that test expression, and it's going to compare that against the values in our cases. So in this case, we're looking at cases like A, B, C, D, F, and then our default. So for each one of these cases, we've specified the character that we're interested in. So kind of like saying if letter grade is equal to A, or if letter grade is equal to B, so forth and so on. And then for each one of those cases, we're going to have a colon, and then we've got our two statements. So one of those is going to be the statement that we actually are interested in executing, that print statement that we just saw. And the other is going to be a break. So we see that break keyword there. That's what lets us know that we are done executing this case and that we want to break out of this switch. So this is going to be very important for making sure that we only execute one case at any given time. So let's go ahead and minimize this. And let's go ahead and start putting this together right here. So the first thing we had was going to be our test expression. So we use the keyword switch, and then we want to put into the parentheses the variable that we're interested in making our comparisons to. So that's going to be our letter grade. And then right here, we're going to go ahead and put in each one of our different cases. So we can see the different cases based on our if, else statements. So we've got our A, B, C, D, and F. So we're going to do case. We have our single quotes and then the A. So that's for the character A. And then right here, we'll go ahead and just put in the same print statement that we had before. So we're going to say system.out.println. We'll say your grade is in the range of 90 to 100. And then we'll make sure that we have that break statement so that we stop there. So then we'll go ahead and just take this, we'll go ahead and copy that, and we're going to go ahead and reuse this a couple of times. So we've got our case A, our case B, C, D, and F. We're going to count for each one of those. So we'll go ahead and change this. So we're going to do case B, C, D, and F. And then for each one of these cases, we need to go ahead and modify this range as well. So this one's going to be 80 to 89. This one's going to be 70 to 79. This one's going to be 60 to 69. And then this one's going to be your grade is less than 60. Okay. So that's going to cover each one of the cases where we get some input from the user that we are actually expecting, but we also have our else statement right here where we're trying to account for all of the other cases. So just in case the user gives us some faulty input that doesn't really make sense for what we were expecting, we can go ahead and do that here as well. So in a switch, that's going to be the default case. So right here at the very end, we're just going to put in the default. And right here, we'll go ahead and just include that statement. So please enter either A, B, C, D, or F. System.out.println. Please enter either A, B, C, D, or F. Go ahead and save that. And so now that we've got all this set up, I'm going to go ahead and comment out the if-else. So we're going to be relying on just the switch in order to accomplish this, this behavior for the remainder of our program. So make sure that we have this visible to us. And so I'm going to go ahead and run this again. And now if I go ahead and enter one of these different cases, so let's say I put in A, this will give me your grade is in the range of 90 to 100. Run it again. We do something like B. Your grade is in the range of 80 to 89. Let's skip down to, say, F. We try this one. Your grade is less than 60. And then we can also go ahead and test out the default. Again, it'd be expecting the same sorts of faulty values, so any character other than A, B, C, D, or F, including the lowercase. So if we do like a lowercase a, that's going to give us please enter either A, B, C, D, or F. But admittedly, you probably would want to account for either an uppercase or lowercase a. You wouldn't really want to fault the user for typing in a lowercase a. It seems like a pretty reasonable input. So we want to go ahead and modify this switch to allow the user to input either a capital A or a lowercase a. So there's a couple of ways we could approach this. One is to take this letter grade that we have and just convert that to being either uppercase or lowercase, whichever we would be interested in, possibly for this one to be uppercase. So that's one option. Another option that could help to account for multiple cases that could give the same output is to just go ahead and add another one right here. And the reasoning behind this, I'll go ahead and demonstrate this. Let's say that for just a moment I were to exclude this break statement. Let's see what happens when I do that. So I go ahead and run this. So we've excluded the break here on case A. So let's see what happens when I type a B first. So we put in this capital B, push enter. We see your grade is in the range of 80 to 89, so nothing wrong with that. Go ahead and run it again. This time let's put in this capital A and see what happens. So when I do that, it's going to print out your grade is in the range of 90 to 100, but it's also going to print out your grade is in the range of 80 to 89. And the reason that it's doing that is because if I exclude this break statement, so if that's omitted from my switch, then what's going to happen is it's going to fall through to the next case, and it's going to start executing all the lines inside of that case as well. So if I was to exclude every one of these breaks right here, it would end up executing all of these print statements, including the default at the end. So we can actually take advantage of this. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I keep that break statement in my code. And what we can go ahead and do is just put two different cases that will fall through to the same print statement that we have right here. So to give you an example, I have both uppercase A and then also lowercase a. And so with my uppercase A, there's no code that I need to execute, so it's just going to immediately fall through to this next case. And if either one of these are true, so either one of these cases, all of that's going to fall through to this print statement and just go ahead and print out your grade is in the range of 90 to 100. And we can go ahead and do that for every one of our cases. We can just go ahead and add a second lowercase version. So we'll do, if the case is an uppercase or lowercase b, in both of those cases it falls through to this print statement right here. It just says your grade is in the range of 80 to 89. Same thing with case C, upper and lowercase. And then case D. And upper and lowercase, and then also case F. So go ahead and save that. And so now, with this modification to our different cases, we'll go ahead and run this. So if I go ahead and put in an uppercase letter for any one of these, we'll still get the same output as before. So we'll still see your grade is in the range of 90 to 100 when I put a capital A. And now if I go ahead and run this again and I put a lowercase a, I'll also get your grade is in the range of 90 to 100. So now we have two different cases that we can account for each one of our different outputs. So the last thing that I want to address is going to be with this default. So you notice that we put the default at the very end, and that we don't include a break statement with it. So the reason we don't include a break statement with the default is because it is the very last case that we're going to consider. So since this is at the very end of our switch statement, there's nothing for it to fall through to if this is false. There's nothing left in the switch after that. So there's no reason to include a break here. But an interesting thing about the default statement is that it doesn't necessarily have to be at the bottom, although I would highly encourage you to leave it at the bottom. But just to demonstrate the flexibility of this statement, or this case, I'm going to go ahead and take that, and we'll go ahead and move it to the top. Just place it right here. And so if I place it right here, and I go ahead and run this, so let's say I put in something that's still good, so something other than the conditions for the default case, so like a capital A, we'll still get the usual output for everything. We can even get it all the way down to our F, so all the way at the very end there, your grade is less than 60. But let's consider what happens when I put in something that doesn't fit with any of these cases, say like just the letter Q. So if I do this, it's going to print out the default case. It's going to say please enter either A, B, C, D, or F. But because I moved the default statement to the top and there's something underneath it, then it's going to fall through to whatever's underneath it since I don't have the break right now, and it's going to go ahead and execute that as well. So we can actually see that right here where it's executing this print statement right here within our case for upper or lowercase a. So we see your grade is in the range of 90 to 100. So if for whatever reason you decide that you want to put the default case somewhere other than at the very bottom, I wouldn't really recommend it, but if you want to try to do this, just keep in mind that just like any of the other statements or any of the other cases, you would need to include a break for it. So you'd have to do something kind of like this, and then if you were to run it and you input some faulty value for it, you would only get the default case. But ideally, we don't really want to do this. Instead, we would like to just go ahead and leave this guy at the very bottom. Place it right there. Okay, so at this point, this is going to wrap up everything for the switch statement. So this is going to conclude the part of Chapter 3 that covers primarily just decision structures. In the next couple of sections, what I'm going to start talking a little bit about now is going to be different ways that we can go about formatting the output that we're displaying in that console window.